welcome back to my channel. Welcome to, I think this is episode 8 of my wed shred / dieting for my wedding. If you are a OG regular subscriber, you will know what's up. Every week I'm making a new video in the lead up to my wedding. We actually started at the 15-week mark and now I think it is week 8, which means we're like over halfway, which also means my wedding is in like 7 weeks, which is freaking crazy. Wedding is in the middle of December and right now it's the middle of October, or even coming towards the end of October, which is just honestly crazy. And I thought I'd do a video today and talk about some of the changes that I'm making to my training and my nutrition with like, let's say 6 to 7 weeks to go of like dieting. Nutella's here, so someone who follows on Instagram and listens to the podcast and everything, you probably have so much info about me and my dieting life. Obviously, I've been talking about it on the internet for like 5 to 10 years, which is crazy. Noisy dog. I'm gonna have to get up and open the door so he can piss. Is this a joke? Is this dog kidding? If you have followed along on Instagram and listened to the podcast and all of the things, you probably could have literally pieced together my dieting history and all of my numbers and facts and stats and everything. What I thought I would do today is kind of talk about them in a little bit more detail because I don't feel like I've ever really done that on YouTube. Just explain why and how I'm adjusting my nutrition and training for the next month and a bit and just moving forward in general. A little bit of a backstory or just like my history with nutrition and training. So for the last probably 4 years, I've done very intentional muscle gaining phases and then fat loss phases. And usually I will spend about 8 to 9 months doing a very intentional muscle gaining phase and usually eating around 2,700 calories, anywhere from 2,500 to about 3,000, which is awesome. But it's a very intentional gaining phase. Usually I put on anywhere from like 6 to 10, if not even maybe a little bit more kgs, which is obviously a fair bit when you think about a female just packing on 10 kilos. It's quite daunting, but obviously it's been very intentional and there's been a lot of reason behind it. Usually when I finish a gaining phase, I'm around 68 kilos, give or take. And then, like I said, I'll do a very intentional, usually pretty strict, pretty aggressive, pretty intense fat loss phase / calorie deficit on the other side of that and get down to around like 57 or 58. So again, when we think about that, it is about 10 plus kilos that I will lose. And usually a gaining phase would be like 8 to 9 months. And then a fat loss phase might be 4 to 5, give or take, usually about 4 and a little bit of time at maintenance around that as well. But that has been my nutrition and training structure for about 4 years, I'd say since about 2019. And it was awesome. I loved it. I feel like I put on so much muscle. I built so much shape. Like I'm so stoked that I did that. But this year, I just wanted to have a little bit of a breather from that. In the past, I've had a very big drive to put on muscle and to strip off body fat. Like I've been so pumped, so motivated, so excited. It's been really awesome. And then when I finished my fat loss phase towards the end of last year, I felt like I nailed it. It was awesome. I did a photo shoot for my business. Like it was all wicked, a wicked result, but I just felt like I had this bit of an underlying thing where I was just like, I'm not that bothered. Like I wouldn't care if I didn't hit a certain weight or I didn't get super shredded. And I was motivated and I followed it through, but more just because it's what I'd always done and I just kind of set the plan and I was like, well, I'm just going to follow through on my plan. But there was definitely just a little bit of a different feeling where I was like, do I really care that much? And I would say for like the 4 years before that, I was like, oh, yes, I do. Like that wasn't even a question. I was like, I care so much. I'm so pumped to put on muscle. I'm so pumped to drop body fat. No questions asked. And then last year, towards the end, I did just start to question it and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So then for the first probably 6 months of this year, maybe even a little bit longer, probably 7 to 8 actually, I didn't really do anything intentional. Like I wasn't in an intentional deficit. I didn't push an intentional gaining phase. I was just quite chilled really. And if you follow in all those other places, you'll know that I worked towards my running goals. I wrote my ebook, Simple Meals, which you can buy. I was just doing other shit. And like I said, I just didn't have that big drive to really pursue a body composition goal. It was more just like, I'm happy to kind of keep things as they are and just enjoy my nutrition and training while I put my energy and attention into other things, which is exactly what I did for pretty much from like January through to August, really. And then obviously Shaq and I announced our wedding. It's really exciting. And I just felt like I wanted to honestly just tighten things up a little bit. I was never like, oh, I need to drop bulk kgs or I need to do this big aggressive deficit. I was literally just like, I've been a little bit chilled. Probably if I had to put a number on it, I wouldn't mind dropping like 2 to 3 kilos, but it was more just like, feel a little bit off in some of my summer clothes. Obviously when we think about like a wedding dress, I'm not really wearing an actual wedding dress, but wedding outfit, let's say. I was just like, okay, I wouldn't mind just being a little bit leaner. I'm probably looking at 2 to 3 kilos. And if you've been following for this whole series, I started my fat loss phase at 62.6 kilos, which even if we think about other times I've started a fat loss phase, I've been more like 68 kilos. So again, I didn't need to push such an aggressive thing because I wasn't trying to get off such an aggressive amount. So usually to go into a very clear, direct, intense fat loss phase, I would eat around 1600 calories. For this deficit, I've done 1900. And obviously that's quite a difference when we think about it. And I think a lot of people can think like, well, how would you achieve fat loss on both? Like that's quite a different intake. I don't think this really comes down to my actual education with nutrition and training. Obviously, I'm a sports nutritionist. I do have education, but this is the sort of stuff that you can only really learn about yourself through a lot of like trial and error, giving things a go, seeing how your body responds, and really just collecting all of that feedback and all of that data. And that's what I've been doing for years. So coming back to those numbers, the reason that I would usually do a deficit on 1600 and I did on this time at 1900 is because when I'm on that, I'm dropping weight, I'm dropping measurements, I can see visual changes in my pics and my body comp and everything pretty much every week. Whereas on 1900, it's just been a little bit more of a slow burn, if you will. I think I've dropped about 2 kilos overall pretty much since early September, and now we're coming towards end of October. So it has been about 7 to 8 weeks. In an aggressive deficit, I would drop 10 or 11 kilos in 16 weeks. So do the maths on that. Obviously, I've been doing that for 2 months. My goal was to get around that 59 to 61 kilo mark, give or take. I just like to put those numbers on it because I think people like to kind of know your numbers and when they're following along on the journey. For me personally, I was never like, I need to hit this weight or this is my goal weight or whatever. Again, like I know myself, I know my body so well. And it was more just like, I'm gonna know when I'm feeling good. And that has definitely been the case for the last week or two. I felt pretty good for the whole time, but I could just feel myself getting a little bit leaner, tightening up a little bit more. There's definitely part of me, and I think so many people will be able to relate to this, where we are just conditioned from years of this dieting world to always just think like lighter is better. And I speak about this so much in Eat Like Ruby programs because it really is conditioning and it really is a big mindset piece. But you still have to like tap back in for yourself personally. And there's an element for me where I'm like, okay, well, a successful fat loss phase has always finished for me around the 57 kilo mark. Right now I'm around like the 60 to 61 mark. Should I keep going to 57? I actually don't need to push to be that light and hit that light weight that I've hit in the past because I feel great right now. And it's such a crazy concept because for most of us, and especially females, we had that message for years where like, well, if the scale goes down, it's good. The lighter we are, the better. Like weight loss is always the goal. Like I'm sure everybody can pick up what I'm putting down there. It's been a massive thing for me to really look and say like, how do I actually look and feel at that weight at 57 versus how do I look and feel right now? When I'm not in a fat loss phase and I'm not going through it, in my mind, I'm like, Rubes, when you get down to 57 or 58, you're a little bit skinny, you're a little bit scrawny. I tend to lose my shape, like my hips and my ass. It just all disappears. I'm like very narrow through my lower body. The leaner and lighter I get, the more that just fades away. And I actually don't like the look because I do feel quite skinny and quite scrawny. And some people might love to be light or skinny or be that weight or whatever, but I just think it's so important to really tap in and think about your own body and think, where do I actually look and feel my best? For me, it truly is around the 60 kg mark. When I am down in those 50s, like 57 or 58, I don't actually love the way I look and feel. And then when I come up towards 60, give or take, I actually just like that shape. I like that look a lot better. Part of me that is like, well, I know how to lose weight. Like this is literally what I do for a living. So should I just push that little bit more? And you really have to catch yourself. And I've really had to catch myself and just be like, that's actually not what I want. Even if you're someone who's really fit, really healthy, really great, I feel like so many people have this little underlying thing where they're like, I just love to drop a little bit. And for me, I've just been so aware of catching myself in that and being like, actually, would I? It's just cool to point that out, and I feel like I have so much more to say, so I will do the podcast about it. So what I'm doing now and the changes that I'm making to my nutrition and training is that I am moving to maintenance. If you don't know what this means, definitely listen to the Eat Like Ruby podcast because I've literally got podcasts coming out right now, last week, there's one next week, all about this. But basically it is increasing my nutrition intake to a point where I won't keep dropping weight. I will just start to maintain weight and therefore maintain body composition. Obviously, I don't want to just do a diet and be like, oh, diet's over and now I'm gonna go to shit while my wedding's coming. I literally do not encourage anyone to ever do that. I teach all of my girls in Eat Like Ruby to come out of a fat loss phase, go into maintenance, and then navigate nutrition from there. I think that's where the real actual juice is. Maintaining it and navigating nutrition for the long run is actually the hard part, I think. I'm going to move my calories up to 2,200, which is such an enjoyable amount. I'm stoked for that. Such a good amount to plan really enjoyable days, be able to tick all the boxes of nutrition. But for me personally, I find my maintenance is around from about 2,000 calories to about 2,400, give or take. I want to keep it at 2,200 just because I don't want to push that real edge of maintenance, because I do want to be able to factor in a few meals out here and there. So I'm probably looking at having a meal out once a week. If we think about a meal out and it's untracked and it's potentially higher calorie, it can then pull our overall intake up a little bit, and then it might make my average intake around 2,300. But know that I'm really just going to hold quite steady with my body comp, and that's exactly what I want. That's just such a sweet spot for me personally, and I think it's just really cool to find that spot for yourself where we don't have to be like deep in a gaining phase. We obviously can if we want to, and like I said, I've done that for a long time. I love it, but I feel like sometimes we can feel like we need to go right into the gaining phase or right into that aggressive fat loss phase. If you're not someone who is too educated or in a good spot with your nutrition and training, often people can just think like, I need to be good on a really restrictive diet over here, or I'm like off track, blowing out my diet over here. And obviously I speak to that so much on the podcast. I speak to that in the Fuck It Mode masterclass. If you do not have that, guys, side note, that masterclass is some of the best work I've ever done, which is all about festive season nutrition. And I literally speak so much to the people who go into the festive season trying to be good and sticking to that strict diet, like I just said, all the way over here, eventually hit a point in the festive season where they go into bucket mode and blow their diet all the way out over to here. There's such a big middle ground here that I'm personally going to sit in for the next few weeks and the next few months, and that's exactly what I speak about in the masterclass as well. So get in bucket mode. It is great, if I do say so myself. I have started a new training block. I'm probably a week and a half in. Because I'd been quite chilled with my lifting while I was focusing on running through the winter, I didn't want to just go like balls to the wall, crazy gym program because I'd be pretty sore. And I've been fucking sore the last week from this new program. So I'm doing legs 3 times a week, but they're quite short leg sessions. So they're about 4 exercises in a session, whereas but a little bit more frequently, so 3 times a week, and then 2 upper body sessions. Don't go in and do like chest and tries and back and buys because I am naturally quite built in the upper body. I'm not really looking at like building size in my upper body. I more just want to get better at certain things like chin ups. I think it's just sick to be able to jump on the bar and rep out some chins. Even though those sessions have been short, they've been quite heavy, big lifts, like a lot of deadlifts, a lot of hip thrusts, a lot of pushing, like leg pressing, lunging, squatting, that sort of thing. So training's definitely been ramped up, but my food's been ramped up as well. And I feel like the combo of those 2 things is what's going to really keep me in that sweet spot with body composition. If you think about pushing 5 heavy strength sessions a week, I'm obviously going to maintain pretty good muscle mass, shape, all of those things that we train for in the first place, good strength, obviously. And then with nutrition being in that sweet spot where it's really consistent, like always, protein's good, fiber's good, food quality's good. If we combo those things and we really nail that consistency, this is where I find we can really create a wicked shape, a wicked like lean, good looking, athletic shape. That's kind of the look that I love a lot more compared to, like I said before, continuing to diet down and getting really skinny and scrawny. I would much prefer to be 2 or 3 kilos heavier, but keep that bit of shape, really push it in the gym, increase my intake a little bit to fuel those gym sessions, recover from those gym sessions with that extra food in the tank, have the extra food go towards the gym, have the recovery, use up the food, and we can create these really cool loops where obviously we're not overeating at all, even though we've increased the intake a little bit. It's all really going towards a good place. Training's super consistent. We've got the energy for it. We're recovering good. And overall, I think the look and the feel that creates can come out of a fat loss phase and then let all of that go with the consistency, and then they do kind of feel a little bit shitty. So I think if you can move into a phase where you're really focusing on good quality training, good quality food in an enjoyable amount, and really having it all fuel each other, I think that is the dream. That is a wicked place to sit. But I'm definitely enjoying being back in the gym, lifting 5 days a week. I love it. And obviously I love eating, so I'm enjoying that little increase in my food. I'll show you guys what some of this looks like with my new nutrition intake, with my new training program. I would love to do a week of workouts and show you what those 5 days look like. I'm feeling good, I'm training good, I'm eating good. My wedding is so soon, I'm excited. So I will be back next week and every week up until the wedding. So stay tuned.